It's a tremendous source for us. At every siyum, we try to have, a renowned speaker. First of all, Echad Mimnei Chabura, that's Mendy. Everybody has Rikshay Lev what to share. We have a tremendous chus tonight to hear world-renowned, actually, speaker. I'm sure he'll deny it, but you can just Google him and you'll see. Dovid Kaplan agreed to address us and say a few words. I'm sure you'll find him both entertaining, insightful, and will be a tremendous chizuk for us. Afterwards, we'll have, like Rebelli mentioned, we'll have a kumzitz with Reb Nachman, our very own Reb Nachman Seltzer, and Reb Simcha Sussman. So stick around. Night's just beginning. Without further ado.
First of all, don't bother looking for me anywhere on the Google. All you're going to see is Raveli Stefanski being advertised on the. When I walked in just now and I met him, I had the honored privilege to meet Raveli for the first time, and I pretty much expected him to see him go like this and like this and like this and like this, like this, like this. So it's a very big privilege to be here. Tremendous thing. I'm sure everybody has mentioned has spoken about it. The Panovich Rav once went to the Chavetz Chaim. Panovich Rav had a yeshiva back in Panovich, and running a yeshiva, and he didn't know if it's worth his while, all the effort to run a yeshiva and collect. And when you're charged with the yeshiva, the last thing you have to do is learn. And so he went to see the Chavetz Chaim. So he had a ride. He got on the train, and he went to Radin. So he went to Radin, and he goes in about a 6-hour trip. He comes into the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim Kedarko, he had a habit of addressing people's issues before they even spoke. The Panovich Rav comes in, and the Chavetz Chaim says to him, "Can I ask you a question? How many daf Gemara did you learn today?" So Panovich Rav said, taken them by surprise. He goes, "Well, listen, I've been in transit. It's been difficult. Train switching, this, that, and the other. I've managed to learn two and a half daf today." Chavetz Chaim said, "I learned 200 daf today." Panovich Rav said, "I know he's good, but not that good. 200 daf. How can you learn 200 daf?" So Chavetz Chaim says, "Come here." He pulls him over to they're standing upstairs. They have the window of the room overlooking the Beis Medrash and the Chavetz Chaim's yeshiva. He says, "This is my yeshiva. I have 200 bachrim yeshiva. This is my yeshiva. I have 200 bachrim learning Torah in my yeshiva. That means I've learned 200 daf Gemara today." So I thought to myself, well, 200 is pretty good. And then I realized, Raveli here has about, 8,000 daf Gemara in one day. That's pretty good. 8,000 is impressive. This is obviously something I think it's also suitable for Maseches Beitzah, that a siyum on Maseches Beitzah, that Beitzah Shaloldo, it was prepared and it was born, it wasn't there, it was there, it's half there, it's what. And at the end of the day, you have a situation where this is an idea, the Daf Yomi, which was started so many years ago, and it's always developing, and all of a sudden there's a new Beitzah Shaloldo over here, a completely new program. I think it's unheard of, and people are joining left, right, and center, and it's a tremendous accomplishment. And I think that all of the men who come to the Chabura, without the Ein Melech Below Am, you can't have people can't give a shiur if there aren't people coming to the shiur, and the man can't come to the shiur if there's no wife pushing them to the shiur. And therefore, it's a big yasher koach to everybody. It's a tremendous undertaking, and really you should just continue on and not let anything stop it from developing further. The Gemara says that Reb Yechanan had a Talmud. And Rabbi Yochanan was giving a shiur. Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Kuf, the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan was giving a shiur. He said in the future there are going to be these giant gems that are going to be stood up in Shari Yerushalayim. Magnificent gemstones. They can be 30 amos high, 10 amos wide, 20 amos wide. Ligleg Alav. There was a Talmud who was Malagleg. See, I've steiged already. There was a Talmud who was Malagleg on Rabbi Yochanan. He said, how could it be? You don't even find a gemstone the size of an egg, and you're talking about gemstones that are going to be 30 amos tall. The Yamim, sometime later, he went off at sea. This Talmud was off at sea, and he saw Malachi Ashores who were hewing out massive gemstones. And he said to them, what are these stones for? They said to him, this is for Sharei Yerushalayim. This is us destined to be stood up at the gates of Yerushalayim. So he came back to the shir excitedly. He said to Rabbi Yochanan, Rebbe, you should teach, because exactly what you said, I saw these malachim. And Rabbi Yochanan said, had you not seen it, you wouldn't have believed it. You're a malagleg al divrei chachamim. In those days, they took these things seriously. Nosan bel eino belso gal shel atzamos. He turned them into a heap of bones. Nowadays, you just write a newspaper article. In those days, turned them into a heap of bones for being malagleg. Gemara number 1. Gemara number 2. Gemara says that Rabbi Gamliel saw a ship at sea, and he saw this ship was lost at sea, and he was upset about a Talmid Chacham who was on the ship was Rabbi Akiva, and he's lost at sea. And when Rabbi Gamliel went up to shore, he got to shore, and there was Rabbi Akiva there sitting. He said to him, what happened to you? How did you get saved? He said, Daf shel zfina nizdamnali. I grabbed onto a daf. V'chol gal v'gal, every wave that came by, I just turned my head to deflect that wave off. So I was thinking to myself, what daf was it that he grabbed? I heard B'Shem Reb Mendel Weinbach Zatzal. He grabbed that daf Gemara, and with that daf Gemara, he was able to deflect every wave that came at him. And the remarkable thing is that gal is the opposite of the letters of malagleg, lagleg. Lamed Gimel, Lamed Gimel, Gimel, Lamed Gimel, Lamed. There's nobody who learns daf yomi. I would bet there's nobody in this room who hasn't had at least one person come to you and say, well, what do you learn daf yomi for? I mean, you don't get that much. You don't remember that much. You don't get that. Have you ever had a malagleg? Have you ever had anybody come over to you and say, why do you do it? You learn it too fast, so this, that, and the other. You know, my respect, and what do you do during that time? When you're worried I'm not going to remember the daf, are you not learning it? You're certainly not going to remember the daf. That's for sure. So a person has these, we are blessed in life. Whenever you want to do something good in life, there's always somebody to be malagleg. That means you know you're doing the right thing. If there's a malagleg, if there be no malagleg, then we're in trouble. If there's a malagleg, then we know we're doing the right thing. I heard once about this guy decides he wants to see how people conduct themselves in the marketplace. This guy's a simple shoemaker. He wants to see how people work in the marketplace. So the guy goes out to the marketplace and he sees a guy selling a horse. So they got a horse, 500 rubles for the horse, 500 rubles. Guy comes over and says, I'll give you 100 rubles. Says 500, 100, 450, 100, 400, 100. Guy was Jewish. 350, 100. Guess what? 101, 100. Says, all right, take the horse. They give the horse for 100 rubles. So this guy's watching and he walks over to the guy who sold the horse. He says, you know, I know that you're in this to make money, but you wanted 500. You got 20%. I mean, you really did not do well on this business deal. He said, I did great on this business deal. He said, but you only got 20% of what you were asking. The guy says, yeah, but you see, the horse is lame. The horse isn't even worth 100 rubles. I said 500 so that when he got it for 100, he'd be happy. But the horse isn't even worth 100. Guy goes, I see that in business. You really got to be a chacham in business. So he goes over to the other guy. Says, you know what? I know you think you're smart, but you didn't do very well on this. I said, I did great on this deal. He said, yeah, but the horse is lame. It's not worth 100 rubles. He says, yes, I know, but look at this. He picks up the horse's hoof. There's a nail in the horse's hoof. He says, I know the horse is lame, but I saw the nail. I'll take out the nail. The horse would be fine. I did great on this deal. He goes, wow. Goes back to the first guy. He says, you know, now you got to admit that, you know, not so good, right? Because after all, there was a nail there. He says, I know that I did great on this deal. So how could you, but the horse had a nail? He says, I know. I put the nail in the horse's hoof. You see, the horse is lame even without the nail. I put the nail in the hoof in order that he should think that's why the horse, the guy's head is spinning. He said, now I know I'm not in business. I can't, you know, this is unbelievable that these guys are, you know. He goes back to the other guy, says, okay, now I think, you know, you think you're smart, but, and you saw the nail, but the horse is lame. Even he put the nail in. You did not do well. He said, I did great on this deal. He said, but the horse is lame. He said, yes, but the money I gave him is counterfeit. So he goes back to the first guy. He says to the first guy, okay, now you got to admit defeat. The money he gave you is counterfeit. He says, I did great on this deal. He said, but the money's counterfeit. He said, yeah, but the horse wasn't mine to sell to begin with. There's a story, I usually tell the story at an Erusin, you know, where just to let people know what you think you got is not what you got. But a very unpopular story, by the way. There's a tremendous Musar Haskell. The Musar Haskell is that there are certain things in life, the value is deceptive. We don't know how much it's worth. And a person sits and learns Daf Gemara. I've had these malaglagim in life. There's always a malaglag on something or other. And a person has to know, where you're doing the right thing. But what does the Kosh Baruch Hu want you to do for an hour? What should you do for an hour? Only a Reb Chaim? If you're not learning Reb Chaim or a Ksos or a Torah, that's not learning. So a person, it's something that people find that there's a need to go and help us to discourage us. You ever find that whenever you're doing something good, there's always somebody who's a naysayer. Person has to know that we have to rise above it. Even more than that. Sometimes a person says, I'm going to start learning Daf Yomi. It's going to take me 7 years to learn Daf Yomi. It take me 7 years. I want to tell you, I saw Chochma B'Goyim Tamim. I once saw in a very, very important book called Reader's Digest years ago, so every word is true. I saw this guy is 72 years old, and he goes over to register for college. And he's standing there with a bunch of young 20-year-olds. He's registering for college classes. So a guy looks at him, one of these young kids, he looks at him, he says, excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question? What are you doing here? He says, I never went to college. I'd like to go to college. He goes, can I ask you a question? How old are you? He says, I'm 72. He says, well, it takes 4 years to graduate. He says, yeah. He says, well, in 4 years, you're going to be 76. He says, in 4 years, I'm going to be 76 anyway. I'd rather be 76 with a college degree than without a college degree. The guy says, you know what? It's going to take me 7 years to learn. In 7 years, I'm going to be 94. In 7 years, I'm going to be 119. In 7 years, yeah, but you're going to be there anyway. Unless you pay a plan, the plans otherwise, you're going to be there anyway. And therefore, I would rather be there with knowing or having learned big sections and spending my time properly than not having gotten there. And when they had the massive financial crunch in the United States, what was it, 2007, 2008? A man went to his Rav and he cried to his Rav. He said, I have nothing, I've been wiped out. I have nothing left to show for my last 25 years except my 45 minutes a day of Daf Yomi. That's what the man said. So a person says, how much is it worth? How much is it worth? It's worth an amount that we can't possibly fathom, and nothing should discourage us from continuing. Everybody, whatever Torah they're learning, that's what the cube of the world is. There isn't a light over here or anything, is there? Notice how I said that? I'm married. Thanks. Just maybe put it up here so I can knock it down.
There you go.
Oh boy, sorry to be difficult. Yes, I am. Oh no. I can't see a thing here. 1 second. There's more. No, I have them, but I left them at home. No, I don't. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. And by the way, the key to the success of the whole thing, I didn't know this till I came here. Rabbi Stefanski's wife is from Chicago. That's the key to the whole thing. If there's anything good in the world, it's from Chicago. That's a rule. So
you notice how people are clapping?
Yeah, I noticed that. That's the rest of my minions from Chicago. Because I'll say, good old Talmud Torah Yoser Me'atzolos Nefashos. Talmud Torah is greater in saving lives. A person, difficult to understand. Talmud Torah is greater than saving lives. How could that possibly be? Good old Talmud. Everybody knows if somebody's drowning, you have to close your Gemara. You can't say, well, just tread water until I finish the mission. It doesn't work that way. Somebody's drowning, you have to stop what you're learning, you have to save it. The answer is that in a Chanami, you also have to stop learning to put on tefillin. We have to stop learning in order to go buy a lulav and an esrog. But the ultimate value is Talmud Torah. There is no greater value. And it's the most difficult thing to understand because the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that Torah is hevel that comes out, it's vapor. It's something that a person can't, there's no tangible essence to Torah. So it's a very difficult thing to understand. How is it that Torah is such a big thing? In the United States, there's a place called Virginia. I don't know if any of you have heard of Virginia. Okay, they've heard of Virginia. Have you ever heard of Blacksburg, Virginia? Probably not. Neither have I, except that I was there once. And in Blacksburg, Virginia made the news about 15 or 20 years ago because a guy got into a university in Blacksburg, Virginia and started shooting people. Minagamokom in America. And he got in and he started shooting people. And there was an Israeli professor, a 70-year-old Israeli professor, who blocked the door. He was guys trying to break into one of the doors of the university, killed 32 people. By the way, the biggest mass killer in history of the United States is from Chicago, by the way. Thank you very much. It's a neighbor of mine. And the John Wayne Gacy, as a matter of fact, for those of you who remember. John Wayne Gacy, by the way, this is parenthetical, but I think I'll share this with you anyway. John Wayne Gacy, after 6 months of examination, after killing 33 people, a team of psychologists examined him for 6 months. And after 6 months, they rendered their decision. He's not stable. That was the
Great.
So anyway, I just had to get that off my chest. In any event, so this guy was shooting people, and his Israeli professor blocked the door. A secular Israeli professor who was at Virginia Polytech University blocked the door. And the guy eventually broke the door down, knocked the door down, killed the professor. But in the meantime, students were able to escape, get out the window. They were able to jump out the windows. And eventually the police got the guy. So it was national news all over the country that here's a Kiddush Hashem of sorts, and he was a national hero, and so on and so forth. A frum woman said to me, it's my wife, she's from, and she said to me that it's true, he's a national hero, but so is every single man who learns Torah, every single avrech in kollel, every single man learning a daf yomi, every single bocher in yeshiva, every single person who's learning Torah is protecting Klal Yisrael. And we have an obligation. We, when I say we, I don't mean we who are learning the daf. I mean, we who are learning Torah have a constant obligation to ourselves and to others to realize when we're learning, we are making the biggest contribution to the world. Nobody contributes more than us, and they should get a clap of the hands. Yes, gentlemen. A hand for ourselves. Yes, yes. When we're learning Torah, we are doing more than anybody else. There's a woman in England. I once went through a period of serious allergies. I had terrible allergies, and couldn't figure out what it was. And one of the things I'm allergic to work. And no. Oh, is that? Am I supposed to end? Finish? I thought that was what they end. And sometimes they just say, just turn off the microphone. Why don't you? I was going through a period of severe allergies.
Beautiful.
No, this was fine over here.
Everybody's.
What happened? Why can't we leave it here?
We don't know. We don't know. He does this to me during Seder also sometimes.
Is that good? Good. I don't feel so bad. It's like sometimes, things get moved in the house periodically. Why? My hachal also. Zebeseder, Lolo, Zetopo.
People in the world.
So this woman in England, I was going through a period of allergies, and the doctor couldn't figure out what it was. Now, I had traced it at a certain point. It was also around 2005. And at one point, I realized I was stressed and tense because being a lifetime Cub fan, the White Sox were in the World Series. And that was causing me tremendous aggravation. Even my own mother, she should live me well. She said to me, no, you're past this, aren't you? I said, no, Mom, I am not. And I was at a chasta in New York right around that time. A guy I hadn't seen from high school, one of my arch nemesis White Sox fans. I was at a chasta in New York in 2005, and an avrech from Lakewood comes over to me. He says, are you Kaplan? I said, yes. He says, I'm Plony's son. He said to tell you. So I've got my payback from, 2016. In any event, I was going through these allergies. At one point, I said to my doctor, what happens if a person becomes allergic to water? What happens if a person becomes allergic to water? So the doctor said to me, all right, they're in trouble. Okay, Kaplan? A couple of years later, I read an article. There's a woman in England. She gave birth. Her body went haywire. She became allergic to water. There are like 17 cases in medical history like this. She can't shower. She can't drink. How does she survive? Now, I'm only telling you what the article said. Do not ask me any kashas. The only thing she could drink was Diet RC. That's what it is. So apparently, Diet RC is pure, freshly squeezed vitamin juice, right? Chemical juice. That's what the article said. And I remember thinking to myself, Ein Mayim Ela Torah. and this woman said, my life is no life. Once a week, she could rinse herself off a little bit with water, and the rest of the time, she is devoid of water. Ein mayim ela Torah. A person cannot exist without water. We cannot exist without Torah. I saw in Ovas Rabbi Nosson, and I want to share this with you. It's such a powerful idea. Ovas Rabbi Nosson in Chaf Gimel. Yes. Ovas Rabbi Nosson says, sorry. Give me 1 second. It's worth waiting for. Chaf Ches Gimel, sorry. Ovas Rabbi Nosson says like this. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Kol ha-meisim shalom b'soch beiso, one who makes shalom in his own house, male olav ha-kosuv ki ilu meisim shalom b'Yisrael and kolecha v'echad. Person who makes shalom in his home, a person who somehow creates a home environment of shalom, it's as if he's made shalom in all of Klal Yisrael. So the Mefarish over here says, how is that? She'al yedei sheyilmedu b'nei beiso lihisnaikach b'beisam tispashet midazu b'kol Yisrael. His own kids will learn from the father to behave a certain way, and then that midah will spread in Klal Yisrael. I don't think that that's limited to shalom only. That's limited to everything else that we do. When our kids see us and they see a devotion to a cause, that happens. That affects the kids. Nothing affects the kids more than what the parents are doing. All the questions that people ask about chinuch and chinuch this, chinuch that, chinuch the other. The best chinuch for children and the best book on chinuch that I've ever seen is called the Mesilas Yesharim. That's a great book on chinuch, because when a person works on himself, his kids will see it. Orchos Tzadikim is also good. Anything that a person does himself, the children are then going to pick that up from the father. And therefore, if a person is wants to be mashpia, the same way that this daf shir started with how many people? Started when what do you call it? Just you? Five people. So look what's happening. Why did it happen? Who knows? For some reason, you were zochah to the siyata d'shmaya. You're all zochah to the siyata d'shmaya. It spread. That's a metzias in Klal Yisrael. I don't want to go too long. I just want to tell you a powerful zog that I heard. Yisachar Chomar Gorem. Some of you may know this. It says Yisachar Chomar Gorem. Reb Lezer Plachinsky Zatzal, Rabbi Yashiv's brother-in-law, he married the daughter of Reb Aryeh Levin. And Reb Lezer Plachinsky was a massive Talmud Chacham, was once walking in Yerushalayim, old Yerushalayim. And he saw a quarry, and they were quarrying out Jerusalem stone from this quarry. And he was watching them quarry out the stone, and he notices an Arab was out there hewing out this heavy Jerusalem stone. He loads up a donkey, and the donkey takes a couple of steps. Now he's got to get up an incline all the way out to the top. So he notices the donkey takes 2 steps and he stops. The Arab hits him with a stick and the donkey won't budge. Hits him with the stick again, the donkey won't budge. He waits. The Arab goes over, takes a towel, drapes it over the donkey's head. The donkey puts his head down and he starts walking, and the next thing you know, he's out of the quarry. Reb Lezer Plachinsky said, now I understand Pshat, the pasuk Yisachar Chomar Gorem. Why is Yisachar compared to a donkey? So what happened to that donkey in the quarry? The donkey is loaded up with stones. He looks all the way up. He said, I got to go Mehachal Hasam. That's a long way. I'm never going to get there. He stops moving. What did the Arab do? He tilted his head downwards. The donkey looks. Donkey says, oh no, I only got to get from here to here. Donkeys don't have a good memory. So they only got to get from here to here. He takes a step. And so they only got to get from here to here. He takes another step. And the next thing you know, he's out of the quarry. The next thing you know, he's out. Sometimes a person takes a look at the Gemara. How are we ever going to get to there? How are we ever going to get finished? No. That's not how we do it. We take a look. Look down. This daf is all I've got. This is all I'm interested in right now. Now I'm interested in this daf. And the next thing we know, we're at the back of the sefer. The next thing you know, a person's made a siyum on Shas. So it's I'll tell you the truth, I was very curious when I got called by Yedid Nafshi, Tomer Levi, called me up to come speak. He said, there's a siyum. I said, okay, speaking of siyum. He said, this is it. Have you heard of Rabbi Eli Stefanski? Yes, I've heard of Rabbi Eli Stefanski. Yes, I always got to get through to get to my emails. Yes, I've heard of Rabbi Eli Stefanski. This is the Chabura. I said, this is a Chabura that I want to see. This is a Chabura that I want to meet. This is a Chabura. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you did it. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what's going on. But this is something that is really, what is it? I mean, it's Gemara. You learn the same Gemara we're learning. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right? I don't know what you're doing. Whatever it is that you're doing. So we finish with a bracha. Set my birkas hedyot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should grant you all much sata d'shmaya. You should continue learning, and you should learn b'simcha. Do I have time to tell you one more story? I'll tell you one more story. It's a beautiful story. I was once at a talk, by the way. The speaker said, finally, and whenever a speaker says finally, everybody kind of sits up and takes notice as if they've been paying attention all along. The speaker said finally, and we all kind of sat up, and he went on, and we were kind of looking around. Then again, he said, and finally, and he said finally 4 times, and eventually he said, finally. Right? Then he brought it in for a landing. So finally, there's a beautiful story I once heard about the Meshech Chochmah. Meshech Chochmah was learning with the Chavrusa of his. They got stuck on a piece of Gemara. You can imagine. Meshech Chochmah got stuck on a piece of Gemara. So they parted, they went into their individual corners, and they davened. They said, let's daven. So they davened. They sat back down the Gemara 10 minutes later, and immediately the Meshech Chochmah got the pshat. So his Chavrusa said to him, now why did you get the pshat and I didn't get the pshat? So he said, did you daven? He said, of course I davened. What did you daven for? He said, I daven. I daven siyata d'shmaya. What did you daven for? So Meshech Chochmah said, I daven for ahavas Torah, that I should love Torah. The Gemara said, why would loving Torah help you to get the pshat? The Meshech Chochmah said, imagine there's a little baby in a room. The baby's crying. The baby's screaming. So the Zaidi takes the baby, tries to give him a snack, and the baby keeps screaming, doesn't want the snack. The bubby takes the baby, tries to burp the baby. The aunt takes the baby. The sister, nobody can come. The mother walks in, listens for a second. All the baby takes the baby, sits down on the couch, cuddles up the baby, just go, yeah, and the baby's calm. Meshech Chochmah said to Chavrusa, a lot of people tried to calm down the baby. Why did the mother know what was bothering the baby? The answer is because of all the people in the room. The mother's the one who loves the baby the most. If you love the baby, you'll understand the baby. And therefore, I daven for Avas Torah. If I love Torah, one way or another, I'm going to understand Torah. Because Rosh will grant you, us, we, all of us, Siyata d'Shmaya, that we should have Avas Torah. We should continue learning whatever we're learning. And it should always be Siyata d'Shmaya. Amen.